Metro, such a wonderful and underrated series. This series of games alone got me into an entire genre of video games because before Metro, I didn't care about the post-apocalyptic genre, but now I really like it. Especially when based in Russia, because there's just a sense of atmosphere and immersion that cannot be matched within this setting, and immersion is something that Metro has that a lot of games don't have. You see, Metro is something that I like to call a just another game. What I mean by this is that when trying to explain this game to somebody without showing them the actual game, they'll just say, oh, it's just another first-person shooter game. The same can be done to other titles, like Warframe is just another grindy looter, Path of Exile is just another Diablo clone, Stalker is just another post-apocalyptic open world, and Divinity Original Sin 2 is just another top-down RPG. But they're not. There's so much more, and that's the purpose of this review, is to show that this series is so much more. Because anytime I post a video with Metro gameplay, there are only two reactions. The first being, man, I fucking love Metro. But the second is, what game is that? It looks cool. I have never been so immersed in a world and so enthralled by a story as I have by Metro. I've been waiting so long to talk about this series, and now I have my chance. So welcome to my review of Metro 2033 and Last Light.
Give me a hand here. Let's go to the main entrance. There's a good shooting position there. I can cover a lot of territory. You're supposed to be immune to their... what? Influence? Well, I don't have your gift. So hop along, rabbit. Head on in and look for the creature. I'm thinking that since the Dark Ones are so fond of you, they'll sense you, or smell you, or whatever the fuck they do, and come from hiding. Just try to stay in the open so I can cover you. We'll maintain radio contact. And if you have second thoughts, don't worry. I'll do it. Okay then. Good luck.
Graphics, audio, animations, art style, and voice acting all make up the first impressions on a game, and first impressions are everything. Metro nailed it out of the park. So much so that I've never spent so long just looking at things in a game, because there are so many little details in Metro. Every single corner of the map is filled with so much detail. The texture work is phenomenal, the lighting is simply the best I've ever seen, and what's even more amazing is this game was made 4 years ago. Well, actually, the Redux version was made 4 years ago, which is basically a reworked and remastered version of the original game. And if you're going to get this series, then the Redux version is the best version to get. But despite being 4 years old, Last Light is still being used as a definitive benchmark game because it is a rather demanding and beautiful game. But if you are playing on a potato, then you can just play on lower settings because I found that there is a pretty good performance increase when lowering settings, though the setting selection isn't that great. Metro does make the mistake of tying a lot of the graphics options into one setting, which is the quality setting. I really don't like when games do this because I like to mix and match different settings to match my taste. For instance, typically I turn down the shadows because shadow quality doesn't make a difference to me, and they are rather taxing on the system. But luckily Metro looks so good and has a very appealing art style that I don't really find this to be a problem, but I can see that being a problem for other people. When it comes to audio, well, I'll just play you some of it.
Go! A glass of moonshine for each Nosalis. How about that, Colonel? To hell with you, Glenn. Another comedian. Stop laughing, Glenn! To the right!
You see, when it comes to the horror genre, I always say that audio is one of the most important things to get right, because it really can amplify the immersion and fear factor of the game, and the same applies to Metro. Now, Metro is not a horror game, but when you're sneaking through an abandoned tunnel, and you hear some creature's claws scraping against the concrete floor as it stalks you, deciding if you're going to be its next meal, there's a sense of fear and immersion created there. Now, of course, as always, graphics and audio aren't everything, but when done in such a way as this, it definitely helps with the immersion. What's the biggest selling point of Metro? The storyline and immersion. Once I finished these two games, I was so enthralled by the world and the story that I went and bought the book and read through that, and I have to say that it's easily my favorite book, even over all the Lord of the Rings. Of course, I don't want to spoil the stories of these two games, but I will give you a small glimpse at this masterpiece of a story. You play as Artyom, who is a young man in his 20s who survived the nuclear holocaust that occurred when he was a boy. This is an interesting setting to a post-nuclear game because it's short enough after the nuclear war that the surface is still uninhabitable and hostile, but long enough to where the creatures have started to mutate. The only humans who lived through the nuclear war are the ones who were in the Metro, and that's where they set their new home. But there is a war going on between them. There are the quote-unquote good guys, who are the Order and the Rangers, the Communistic Party, and the Nazi emulators. There are a lot of gray areas in terms of the morals of the story, and you'll constantly be questioning your own allies and whether or not what they're doing is even good or not. With this war going on between the three factions, there is a fourth and much more powerful faction lingering in the background, and they are known as the Dark Ones. They are neither human or animal, and nobody knows where they even came from. All that is known about them is that they are pretty much immortal and have supernatural powers. To give you an idea, this is what a Dark One can do.
Well, I used to live nearby. Before the war, up there. I was on the train when it happened. I tried calling my family, but couldn't get through.
What the? What happened? Shit! 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 What's going on here?
minor comparison that I can make is the gameplay of Alien Isolation, where you have the humans and the robots to worry about, which are fighting amongst each other, but the whole time you know that the alien is there, and when it shows up, it is the most important being. Now imagine that, but with a story. The political and physical fight for power between the three factions is incredibly interesting and full of twists and turns and betrayals, but once the Dark Ones are present, you give them the full attention because they are so secretive and mysterious, and their stage time is so short that you want to learn every single bit that you can. This immerses me in such a way that I personally can't think of another game that has done it so well. And speaking of immersion, oh my god, there is so much immersion. As I said, there is so much detail in this world, but I have never seen a world feel so alive. I mean, just look at these town-like areas in the game. This is an aspect that so many games struggle with, since it's hard to make NPCs and other aspects of the world feel so real and alive, but Metro just nails it. The towns feel alive and lived in, and the abandoned tunnels and the surface feel dreadful but fascinating. Now there's a reason why I skipped over the gameplay in this review, because honestly it's just a well-made shooter. The gunplay is great, the weapon customization and variation is great, and the survival elements in terms of managing your flashlight power and your filters for your gas mask all work, but in reality it's the story, world building, and immersion that sets this game so much higher than any other shooter I've ever played. You have political battles, war between factions, betrayal, and supernatural mysteries. What else do you need? Metro was a relatively unknown series until Metro Exodus was shown at E3 2017, because let's be honest here and say that it was pretty much the only good thing that Microsoft had to show. But here's what Metro is. It's an extremely detailed, linear, and narrative experience, but Exodus is going towards the open world genre, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. We've seen a few games go from linear to open world, and it never really turned out that well, but here's the thing. Metro 2033 and Last Light were both filled to the brim with extra little areas and details that it was just insane. For example, I played through the games for the 4th time whenever I was recording for this review, and I still found a handful of things in both games that I have never seen before. Due to this, I think that the developers can pull this off, and to be fair, I don't think they've ever said that it is truly open world. They've just been saying that there are open world elements. Also, apparently the bullet currency system is going away, which to me is sad because it was such an interesting system and a true staple of the series. You see, the currency in Metro is military-grade ammunition, which makes you decide between using that ammunition for your weapons, which gives you an extreme damage boost, or using that ammunition to buy weapons, upgrades, filters, and other gear. Hopefully they find an interesting replacement, but we just don't know yet. But I am glad to see them expanding upon their formula because the improvements in every single aspect between Metro 2033 and Last Light were so huge that their jump to a game with open world elements shows that they are ready to try bigger and better things. So in conclusion, this series is not just another shooter. It's simply one of the best narrative experiences you'll ever experience with the most alive and immersive world ever created in a video game. There are certain publishers that are saying that single-player games are dying and that they have no place in the future of video games. These publishers are the ones who are trying to change video games from being an art form into a business. This series, along with many others, are proof that not only are single-player experiences still alive and thriving, but video games as a whole is still one of the best forms of art.